What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, what's going on with other factors involved in the market, what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I begin to tell this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If we sign up for Webull and deposit $500, you are guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 of them, and the offer ends very soon in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, for the market, I just wanted to make it very clear that SPY had a range for today. It was kind of stuck between this for almost the entire day, besides one little moment where it kind of dipped below it before coming back up. So SPY is in a critical position right now, and whether or not we end up breaking some critical levels depends on a lot of data coming out for tomorrow. So I'm going to give you guys my prediction of what could end up happening and also give you guys more insights on this data first before I break down these charts for Tesla, SPY, and the others. So what's happening for tomorrow? Tomorrow being Friday, June 7th, 2024. 1 hour before the market opens at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the non-farm payrolls data, the unemployment rate, the labor force participation rate, and lots of payrolls for manufacturing and governmental positions all coming out. Now, this is going to be very, very important data, but the main piece of data is the unemployment rate for everything overall and the non-farm payrolls. Those are the two main ones in my personal opinion. So we'll see how things end up looking with all the payrolls data and the unemployment rate. The reason why it's so important is because the unemployment rate is going to give us more insights on how the economy is looking, and we are anticipating a softening of the labor market. So I'm expecting to be very close to consensus in the forecast at 3.9%, if not a little bit higher than that. So we'll just have to wait and see how things look. It affects the Fed's policies and different factors like that, and also the anticipation of inflation is also somewhat impacted by employment and data sets like that. Moving forward, at noon tomorrow, we also have Cook from the Fed giving a speech, and that's pretty much it. Everything else is going to be quite minor after we get all this major data. We're also going to be looking at the Fed Watch tool right now for the June FOMC meeting. There's currently a 97.6% chance that the Fed is going to basically keep rates the same. And we're not really pricing in a cuts just yet. That's a little bit later on for the year. It also depends on more inflationary data. But we will see what the Fed ends up saying next week as we have FOMC approaching. Now, on top of all of this, I want to call out something else that's very important. That is the fear and greed index. This is currently very close to fear. We're kind of neutral right now. We're getting very close to this fear end right over there. So just know that market momentum is currently greedy. Right now, greed is making up the way in which sentiment is developing. And then we also have the puts and call option positioning currently quite greedy. As we're seeing more puts being closed still, the trend is continuing, and we're starting to see a little bit more of a change, at least moving forward. And then we also have market volatility. Market volatility got a big rejection off the 50 daily moving average, still kind of shuffling here. Could dip a little bit later because the market has more upside potential later on. I still think that we are in what's known as a buy the dip market as of right now, as long as we hold some key levels. So the VIX is still supporting that notion. Now, when it comes to other pieces of data, please know that tomorrow we have about 288,000 of these calls expiring, almost 300,000, and we have over 556,000 puts expiring. So we have a 1.92 puts to call ratio with max pain being 529. We will see if the market declines to, cause a close at 529 or not, or if we get a drop in a bounce. It's got to be one of those two most likely, in my personal opinion. So what do I think the market's going to do? This is my opinion. So when it comes to SPY, let's just call out these levels. SPY was basically trading between 535 and 534 for almost the entire day before a brief moment where we kind of came back down and popped a bit. So for the way things are looking, I think that SPY has resistance at 535. It's very tough resistance. We fought this level many, many times throughout yesterday and today. And we're kind of stuck there. We weren't able to break through it just yet. If we're bullish after all the data, you want to see it break 535 and push through 536 to 536.5. If we're bearish, you want to see us lose the 20 EMA, which is very close to 534. If we lose that, we're going to be looking for a dip all the way down to 532.5 and eventually 531.5 as two supports. What do I think is going to happen? What's my personal opinion? Well, I do see an issue with the notion that the market will keep pumping higher, and that's the fact that we might get a temporary dip before we continue higher, if anything, because we are kind of contracting on the 4-hour time frame, and we have some tight resistance. So I'm not really a fortune teller, guys. I can't make any promises because it depends a lot on the data that comes out, but I can tell you that there is a chance the market might actually see a little decline just temporarily, make our way down a little bit lower towards the low of the day today. We could even retest first off this high all the way up here about 533, and also this high over here at the 531s. But then even if we do dip all the way down into the 531s to test our 20 EMA, SPY could still bounce to continue the trend. So we're bullish overall. Just keep that in mind. We're very, very bullish. SPY is still pushing very, very nicely. But we could see a little decline just temporarily for us to get bought back up later on again. So I'm looking at this trend right over here. I wouldn't be surprised if SPY kind of declines a bit. Even tomorrow, we actually come down to retest the 531s, but then we hold this trend line later on and continue to pop. So I find that to be the most likely possibility. We kind of pop upon open, then start dropping maybe amidst the data. There might be a decline coming, retest this trend line before we try to bounce back up. That is the most likely possibility based off technicals. But once again, I'm not promising anything. It all depends on the data as well. For Nvidia, Nvidia is holding up well, but I did tell everyone to watch 1250 in my video from yesterday. That's where we went to. I told you to watch and see if we get a decline or rejection somewhere. That's what happened today. Since that, we were kind of shuffling around the 1200s, but just know that we weren't able to break through it. Now we have this very, very important thing going on. So we have this gap all the way down here at 1165. I think that there is a risk of Nvidia coming down to fill this gap, and this could drag the QQQ down lower before it tries to bounce again. So Nvidia is on a very, very nice uptrend. It's actually pushing very, very strongly. This does not mean that I'm saying that it's going to drop, which means it's going to crash or anything like that. I'm simply saying that it may get a temporary decline before anything else after this daily candlestick. Tomorrow, look for a pop in the morning. Maybe the unemployment data causes a dip. If we lose 1185, if we lose that, look for the gap fill all the way down to 1165. And if we hold that support, we could try to rebound. But in my personal opinion, the odds do favor us coming all the way down to about 1165 before we try to bounce. Now, if we were to break 1250, we would turn more bullish. I don't think it's going to happen like that. I have a feeling it's going to dip a little bit, test this support, then eventually come down to fill the gap and then bounce. I find that to be more probable, but just to be safe, we will watch what the data causes. For Tesla had a quite bullish day because we had some good news coming out involving the pay package for Elon Musk and what some insiders were basically saying. So, in my personal opinion, Tesla is turning on the 4-hour and also on the daily. There is a chance that it might try to bounce. Maybe it really depends on different factors. So, for Tesla, this is what I'm basically saying. We're still in a consolidation phase as we're stuck within this range. Now, we have this head and shoulder structure that's developing on the 4-hour, but this could also be a trap, and there's no sign of Tesla really declining. If Tesla loses 173, we could be tipping down to fill the gap at 168 if we close below 173. If we push and close above 180, look for a push all the way up to about 182, then eventually 185. If that breaks, we're going to be flying to much higher levels. Now, on the larger time frames, the inverse head and shoulders like structure is looking more bullish. This has a left shoulder here, a head down here, and a right shoulder, and the odds do favor this pushing all the way up towards the 200s. That looks more probable in my personal opinion. But this may be heavily dictated by the very important shareholder vote that's coming out, so we'll see how things go with that. But right now, there's no breakout, no drop coming to Tesla. We're just completely trading sideways, completely range bound, so we'll just have to see how things end up perpetuating from here. But I just want to make it very clear that there is potential for us to go higher, in my personal opinion, at least later on down the line. But we're going to be watching to see which way we break and how it's affected by the data. It's just range bound for now, so just be patient. But the QQQ, just like SPY, it looks very strong. It could decline a bit thanks to Nvidia. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually decline to retest this high right here before we try to bounce again. We also, we also have an imbalance on the 4-hour around the 460s. So that is a strong possibility, but it also depends on different factors. So we have these levels right here on the hourly time frame. If we break past 465, we'll be looking at 466 as resistance. If we lose support right over here at 462.5, very close to where the low was from today, I could be looking for a decline all the way down to about 460, the very, very low 460s. That's where our 50 EMA happens to be before we try to bounce again. So in my personal opinion, the QQQ is in a very, very critical place. There is a risk of this dipping lower. If we lose 462.5, then 460 is going to be our next target for a bounce. If we don't lose that support and we just hold above 465, we're bullish. The odds do favor a little decline before we try to bounce again. I do favor that a little bit more, but like I said before, it all depends on the data. For Bitcoin is looking so right now. It did try to push a little higher. Now it's kind of showing some weakness. If we reject off 71,000, our 20 EMA, we could be looking for a move back down to 70,500 for a little decline. Now, I also want to note that Neo stock, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is their earnings were not very good, at least for Q1, but Q1 was a while ago. Okay, that was a while back. That's delayed data. Now, if we end up losing 4.8, NEO is going to come down potentially to fill the gap at 4.2. If we lose 4.7, I'm sorry, that's when we're going to come down to fill this gap. If we, excuse me, if we hold this 408 to 407 area, then we could bounce for an inverse head and shoulders. So look for a test of 4.8 tomorrow. As far as NEO goes, let me just say that their earnings were not the best for the short term. They missed on revenue expectations, but they are setting a very, very new and big deliveries record projection for the second quarter. So if we get some strong deliveries again for June, and then we get good earnings, especially as we approach July, that's going to be very bullish for them. I can't wait to see what they end up announcing. Moving forward, guys, that's it for the main ones I typically talk about. Let's focus now and do a kind of like a speed run on the rest of these tickers. We have a double bottom leg structure on Palantir, and technicals do look more bullish if we try to break past 24. If that breaks, we're easily going to be pushing all the way up to about the 24.5 area. If we're bearish, you want to see it basically lose 23.5. If that fails us, we'll be dipping all the way down to 22.5. I favor upside a bit based off technicals, but this also depends on the data we see. But this does look more bullish in my personal opinion. For for looking at super micro, we got a little pop. I was talking about a pop coming to about 800 before seeing a rejection or not. We did pop during the pre-market, but then once we opened, we came right back down. So it kind of failed. I want to just call out that when you zoom out all the way like this is looking kind of weak to me. We have like a head and shoulders like structure, and I am seeing weakness on the 4 hours. So this does favor downside. If we're bullish, you want to see it close above 800. If we're bearish, you want to see it come all the way down to 760 or lower. This chart looks a little bit more bearish. It does favor a dip all the way down to 760. So look for a pop and drop is the most likely possibility. For Rivian, Rivian is looking more bullish overall. I think that there's a very good chance that this may continue. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure, and this does favor a push to the 12s. If we turn bearish, you want to see it reject and start dipping down to about 11.5. But I favor the upside towards the 12s as a stronger possibility. So I favor upside. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders. The 4 hour could push higher, so I do favor that. I think there's a very good chance we continue to pump into the 12s looking at the technicals. So that does look more bullish, technically speaking, but this also depends on what happens with the data tomorrow. So we'll just have to wait and see. Technicals for SoFi are looking more bullish to me. I think that we could be testing our 200 EMA around the 7.2 area. So this looks more bullish, technically speaking. If we're bearish, look for 6.93 to be tested. I favor upside a bit more looking at technicals, but this also depends on data for tomorrow. For, let me see, the IWM Russell 2000, we're kind of range trading right now. We have 205 as or 204.5 as resistance, 203 as support. I think we may just continue to shuffle tomorrow, and we'll see which way we break depending on the data. Now, this does look like a bullish looking, a big W structure that's forming. So this has like a double bottom. So there's a chance it might try to rebound a bit and try to push higher, but we'll just have to wait and see if the data helps it. So tomorrow we might see some consolidation before an attempt to go higher maybe next week. But so far the chart is holding up, but it might see some range bound price action for now. AMD pushed very nicely, but now it's trading kind of sideways. If we pump higher, look for a break of 168. If that breaks, we're going to be pushing much higher towards 170. If we lose support and we start dipping, look for 163.75 to 164 as support. If we lose that, we'll be dipping all the way down to about 161.8. But overall, guys, I think that there's a very good chance that we could see a rejection. Might decline a little bit. Might see a little decline on AMD. I think that I may follow the trend that Nvidia's on for a slight decline before anything else. That's the most likely possibility. So we'll see how the data affects it. For ARM is looking more bullish as we predicted yesterday. It's still holding up nicely, but it's not running as hard as it was before. I could see it get very close to about 140. We will see if we get a decline first before that, or if we just push from here. We could retest 130, the 133 area before we try to bounce and continue higher, or we could pop and then reject. We'll just have to wait and see which one it ends up being. For Coinbase is looking more bullish in my personal opinion. We are trying to push nicely, but it depends if we can try to break above 258. If we fail to break 258, I could be looking for a retest of about 248 before we try to bounce. And we are still on a very, very nice uptrend overall. This chart will go higher later on, but we have to be watching how it kind of reacts to this. So we will see if we get a rejection here or not as we're at resistance. If we reject, I'll be looking for 248s to be retested, 250 to 248. If we push through 258, we'll be looking for the 260s. But right now it's at tough resistance, so we'll just have to see what the reaction is. Amazon's looking bullish as of right now, but I would be careful about one thing. We're at resistance currently at 185. If this breaks, we're easily going up to at least 187. If you reject off 185, we're going to be dipping all the way down towards 183. This chart looks more bullish for the 187 area, so I do favor that. For Meta is also trying to hold up very nicely. We have basically 500 as resistance. If you reject here, we'll be dipping all the way down towards uh, 491. If that fails us, we'll be coming down towards about 488. If we hold above 495, we'll be looking for a bounce. If we fail to do so, we'll be looking for a decline all the way back down to 491 or lower. So we'll just have to wait and see. There was a wick forming right here that does suggest that we might see a decline, but just to be safe, I will wait and see. For Microsoft is on a very, very nice looking uptrend right here. So there's a possibility it tries to go a little higher, all the way up towards this resistance at 427. If we fail to break 425, look for a move back down towards 420 as support. But it all depends if we break or not. But it's still looking quite bullish. We're testing previous support becoming resistance. The trend is still strong, but watch to see if we can break 425. If we break that, I think that we're going to push higher. If we fail, we reject. So I think it's going to pop a little bit towards that level. Still looking strong, but then watch and see if you reject off some tight resistance. For Google, we're still looking very bullish. There's no sign of it breaking yet. We're at resistance currently at 178. If it breaks this, I think 180 is coming. If it rejects here, we'll be dipping. The chart looks bullish so far, so it does favor pushing higher towards 180 so far. GameStop is going to pump tomorrow. It's easily going to break this high, in my opinion, going all the way up towards the 70s potentially. But just be careful, guys, because AMC and GameStop are known for pumping and dumping. So just be careful. Secure profits, not financial advice, but always keep that in the back of your mind. For AMC, I think this thing is going to be approaching this $8 area. I think I'm going to be looking for a nice push tomorrow, and we'll see how things go from there. But the same thing as GameStop. Just be careful. For DJT, we have 46.8 as resistance, and we have support at 44. It's trading sideways as of right now. Might just continue to do so tomorrow, and I'm not really expecting too much. The VIX is dipping so far. We do have this gap to fill down here. So is the VIX going to come down to fill this gap and then try to bounce tomorrow or something different? We'll just have to wait and see. But the VIX still looks a little bit more bearish. For the 10-year treasury yield, it's dipping. This might be affected by employment. If the unemployment numbers are very, very low, this might actually help the 10-year drop down to fill this gap. If they're decent, I don't know if this is going to get a bounce or not, so we'll just have to see what the reaction is. The dollar is looking bearish overall for a head and shoulders, but we haven't lost 104 yet, so we're at support. We'll see if we get a bounce or not, so give this some time. Excuse me. With that being said, thank you all so much for listening. The market is in a critical place. There's a bearish divergence on SPY right now, but we'll see if that leads to anything or not. And just know that as far as the market is developing, we have to be very careful considering that there's important data. So be open-minded and do what you have to do, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow on the next one. So get ready for the big data. That's going to cause a big move. Be calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great day, and peace out.